to Athletics LLC with Lamar, Lucious, Big League Chew, and my man Clyde. You're about to be schooled in all things track and field. This is experience.
Yes, sir.
We are talking past, present, future. Y'all listen up. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. Athletics LLC, last episode of 2020. We made it.
Kinda.
I know, right? I mean, there's only 2 more days left, so. Well, thank you all for joining us. For those who've been here since day one, welcome and making it for our last show of the year. That doesn't mean it stops, it's just for the year. As always, I'm joined by these 3 lovely tiles that are filled with 3 even better gentlemen. Lamar, Happy New Year, Huffins.
Happy New Year.
Clyde.
Surviving.
And last but not least, Lucious.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, win the day, gentlemen. That's all we got to do. So we're going to come out hot and we're just going to go for someone's throat and let them know how we feel about this GOAT pro training group of all time. Whose feelings we hurting?
Now, I would like to know which way we are attacking this question. Because is this like a single year thing, or is this an overall body of work? Because that would definitely make a distinction.
Why don't you set the tone, sir?
No, I'm not falling in for that trap. That's why I asked you, EP.
I think why would this discussion be any different than any other GOAT discussion we've had?
Right.
We've always said you don't base a GOAT on 1 year.
I was looking for consistency.
Okay, so there's your consistency, sir. So fire away.
Go ahead, sir.
I'd say GOAT is greatest of all time, right?
That's right.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
But training groups change year to year, right? So
that doesn't matter if you're talking about a group of all time. Okay, so who's going first? Because I'm not going first.
The EP going.
I'm sorry. Okay. You know what? I'm in a festive mood. I don't feel like fighting with nobody. So sure, I'll go first. I'm just going to go with when we first thought about this conversation, what jumped in my head is really simple. Santa Monica. And Santa Monica Track Club, in my opinion, is the greatest assemblage of talent over a multi-year span under the same flag of a professional group, because they didn't all train exactly in the same place. So like you had the Houston group and you had the Santa Monica group, because you have different coaches, right? So you had the sprints and jumps were coached in Houston, and the middle distance folk and the few distance folk that were in Santa Monica, they were all coached by Joe Douglas and that crew out on West. But at the end of the day, same group, same flag, and more importantly, same level of importance in the sport. So rather than bore folks, and I really believe that we've done a good job of teaching people to fish. So if you don't know who all was in Santa Monica, be better, go do some research. but at the end of the day, because look, we don't do that here. We don't give everybody all the answers, but everybody on this tile knows, on these tiles. So I'll just say this, like, I think that for my money, the reason I would say Santa Monica is there is some value in being first, because you do set the tone and set the blueprint for how things can be done going forward. And then B, I think that Joe Douglas was the first meaningful manager in the sport. Like, he was the first one who actually had pushback with meet promoters like, no, my guys and ladies are not coming for those fees, and no, we're not going to accept that you're only going to get a certain kind of flight for Carl and Leroy, but not for the other people, and no, those living accommodations won't be acceptable, and blah blah blah. He was the first one to use the group think, right? Like, if you were the 16th person in under the Santa Monica flag, that was better than being like the third person under most flags, because the veiled threat would be that, well, if you don't let person X in, Carl's not coming to the meet. And he was the first one to wield the power like that. So it was the first combination of, super manager and super coach, because obviously at the time, Tom Tellez was handling the most talent professionally in the country. So,
see, that's a great opening statement, sir. That's why we chose you to go first. That was a very well articulated argument.
That's usually what all my arguments are, but thank you.
I mean, that's up for debate.
Clyde, have at it.
Sure. So, and I'm not being sarcastic. I think that was well articulated. And for some of those same points is why I think I'm going to try to make a case to go in another direction. Absolutely, Santa Monica, the originators and, foundational pieces of this type of idea in the sport, right? But because there were split locations, for me, I have a hard time nailing that down into a training group. All the same flag for sure. I think that at the height of domination of the sport and accomplishments, my money's gonna be on HSI. They took this idea and for a lot of reasons elevated it and bullied the sport in a way that a lot of people hadn't seen before and really haven't seen since. One of the most amazing accomplishments of HSI that I think doesn't ever get the respect it deserves is HSI swept the men's 100 meters at the Olympic trials, took all 3 positions on the Olympic team. That is an incredible, incredible feat. They had international and Americans on the podiums, world records, all over the world, but one group under one coach in one location under, under one agent. And, I just, for my money, I think they're peak men and women. And that's an important distinction for me. Inger Miller, Tori Edwards, so many, Marie Jose Perret, so many people, came through that program, and I think their height was higher than the other programs that we may, end up getting shouted out in this particular conversation. So that's my opening volley. I'm gonna throw in HSI.
Well, yeah, I find the conversation to be interesting, but you used the term bullied. Santa Monica changed the game. When you talk, if there is no Santa Monica, there is never an HSI. HSI would not have a chance to be the bully if it wasn't for Santa Monica, who just kicked the freaking door down and allowed everybody through it. I understand, I want to give great credit to John and what he did with HSI and the run that they had. But when you talk about Santa Monica and what they did, from a standpoint of advancing the pay of athletes in track and field, no, they never swept the U.S. championships, but there were times when they had 4 guys in the final. They were, you go back.
3 guys on the relay.
Yeah, 3 guys on the relay, a lot, But let me just list the people that were on Santa Monica at some point in time or another. Carl Lewis, Leroy Burrell, Kevin Young, Steve Lewis, Mike Marsh, Danny Everett, Joe DeLoach, Michelle Finn Burrell, Kirk Baptiste, Johnny Gray, Earl Jones, Carol Lewis. Those are all world and Olympic medalists. Okay. Just incredible group of people. And when you talk about what that group did big time, like showing up at the Worlds and Olympics and just dominating, what they did for the sport in terms of changing the game and making people pay for their services. And on top of that, winning a lot of medals, winning medals in the field events as well as on the track. It's hard for me to vote against them. Again, I think HSI had a phenomenal run. I think the John did some phenomenal things, but Santa Monica changed the game. And for that reason,
they invented that game. They invented that game.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I wanted to legitimately ask the question of what angle, we were coming at this from, because I think if you look at a start of a product to the end of the product, I think Santa Monica, overall on full body of work, undeniably wins that. They lasted longer, had more people, and invented, the game being played that way, right? But like I said, training groups change year to year. And 99, 2000, HSI, everything they had going on, and that sweep of the U.S. Olympic trials and the gold medals in Sydney, the stuff that Otto did, the relay, prestige and all of that, and then on what was then a new school side of things, you're talking about HSI was such a phenomenon. They had a whole reality show. Like they got people to look at this thing from a different perspective. And I think, like I said, elevated that model above and controlled more of what was going on at their height. And that's the way I was coming from that argument. If we're talking about this group, like, you have a team right now. Next year, your team is still going to be the Florida Gators, but they're going to be a different team than they were the year before. So I'm like, total body of work, I'm not going to fight the Santa Monica argument. Not at all. But I think.
But I'll even say, like, I don't mean to cut you off, but I look, if you, because what the argument you're making is peak year, peak 2 years, right? Okay, but here's the thing, right? Santa Monica had multiple people on the 80 Olympic team that didn't get to go. And then they had multiple people on the 84, 88, 92, and 96 team. But here's the thing. It wasn't some sort of like, it's a changing of the guard. Like, look, you're talking about Carl Lewis, Leroy Burrell, Johnny Gray on all of those teams, right? Sure. You're talking about Kevin Young on 3/4 of those teams. You're talking about Carol Lewis on 80 and 84 team. Like, same group, same people. Now, look, did you add Mark Witherspoon in there for one Olympics? Yes. Did you add was it Floyd Hurd in there for one Olympics? Yes. But what I'm saying is, like, the core four, so to speak, the core five, like, their longevity is like the best that the sport's ever had.
I'm with it. And I find your argument and your style of argument to be very, very interesting, because ultimately, what is this? It's the Jordan versus LeBron debate, right? People will say Jordan at his peak. No one has Jordan's peak, but the longevity, the full body of work could easily go to LeBron.
I am all with Lamar on this one. Like, if you want to go peak year versus peak year, Santa Monica can party with HSI.
For sure.
Of course they can party.
Exactly. Of
course they can party.
Right. But see, but okay, so to debunk your argument, Santa Monica can party with HSI for that 1 or 2 year span you're talking about, but HSI has no chance. They're not even invited to the long-term party.
Oh, I mean, there's no one else that's even in the conversation. Are there other training groups that we're going to throw into this conversation?
We're talking about the fact that you're comparing HSI to Santa Monica. We're not talking about anybody else. Okay. So what I'm saying to you is, you're talking about this 99, 2000 year, which was phenomenal by HSI, right? Well, I countered that with several 84, 85, 88, 80, whatever you want to do with Santa Monica. So Santa Monica can come to that party with HSI. but HSI is not even invited to the longevity party because there's only one king of that party, and that's the Santa Monica Track Club. They're in that room all by themselves. You know, there's nobody invited. There's nobody even part of the conversation, in my opinion.
And the international success doesn't sway you all in any direction?
And Santa Monica wasn't successful internationally?
That's what I'm trying to understand.
They obviously were. I'm just trying to give the audience as broad of a picture as possible without, as you say, doing the work for them.
So I guess I'll say it like this. Go ahead.
No, please. No, go ahead.
I think for me, it boils down to certain things. Number one, like who's your best player, right? So HSI at their absolute peak, Maurice Green was the flag bearer, correct?
Sure, absolutely, no doubt.
Okay, so let me ask this question: your opinion only. At any point in time, was Maurice Green a bigger deal in track and field than Carl Lewis was?
Oh, you worded that very carefully, and I
no. That's I didn't try to word it. What I'm saying is like it's best player.
A bigger deal is a careful wording of that question. Maurice
you picked the wording.
Maurice took the world record. So was Maurice a better 100-meter sprinter? Yeah.
Okay, wait. Timing is everything, right?
Jumps, right?
Look, Maurice. How many times did Maurice break the world record in the 100? Once, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
How many times did Carl Lewis break the world record in the 100?
Twice? 3 times?
Twice.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Who has more gold medals?
Oh, well, that again.
100. What I'm saying is I'm not even going to cheat, so to speak, and mention the fact that we're talking about the 200, the 4x1, and the long jump. I'm talking about
So again,
peak guy, peak event.
I said Carl wins that argument, but I said you carefully worded bigger deal. He was a bigger deal because he did more things.
So I have a question. Which group has more gold medalists?
That's so not close.
No, it's not. No, Santa Monica does.
Exactly. Who from HSI has Olympic gold medals? Other than Maurice.
John Drummond on relays.
No, we're not doing.
They lost that one.
We're not doing relays.
Oh, I'm sorry. Relay medals don't count. Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
No, give us the relay medals.
Okay, well, what you count Olympic medals then? I mean, medals. Okay. So you got Maurice and John.
Correct.
Has 2.
Right.
I don't have the stats. I didn't make notes. I'm sorry.
Okay. I don't have.
There's no notes to take. That's it.
Right. So Carl has more than the whole HSI group alone.
Cool.
So maybe the discussion should be: is Carl the greatest training group of all time by himself? Maybe that's what the argument should be.
I'll say this: look, a really good argument would be MVP versus HSI. That would actually be a really good debate, not for tonight, but that would be a really good debate and conversation.
Okay.
But HSI versus Santa Monica, it's not really a debate. Like I get it because it's a recency bias thing, right? Like I was a huge HSI fan as well, but at the end of the day, they weren't as good or as good for as long. So therefore, there's really not a conversation.
Fair enough.
And not to mention a greater breadth of events, right? I mean, we go all the way out to Johnny Gray. Right, we go all the way out to Earl Jones. So we got gold medalist and American record holder in the 8s.
And sure. Do we get past the 200 with HSI?
HSI had 400. And like I said, internationally they had some 400 hurdlers and some short hurdlers and stuff like that. But
it's not at that high level. I get you.
Perec won a gold medal in the 4. She won the 4.2 double.
Oh yeah,
she did.
I knew Perec ran there, trained out there. I didn't realize she was represented by HSI. Mm-hmm. I wasn't aware of that, but
she was.
Okay.
Got it.
I corrected.
And again, the women. So that That's all part of the larger context.
And when you made your initial argument, the women was the thing that I actually agreed with you on, right? The HSI's women were better than Santa Monica's women because there weren't very many Santa Monica women.
Correct.
But HSI had Inger,
Tori, and Perek would be your top three women. They had others, but those would be the flagship.
So then Santa Monica counters with Burrell,
Carol
and
Burrell. Yeah.
Well, I've noted the conversation for the future of the two other group, or not two other groups, HSI and the other group, but
the other group.
I'm just going to call it the other group.
MVP.
I wrote it down. I was irrelevant. Anyways.
I'm sorry. Hello? What? Yeah. Jamaica on line 1. They want to speak with you.
I didn't mean it like that.
She said it rocking the shirt too, which is perfect.
She did. She was like, irrelevant.
Anyways, moving on to our next question. Hear it in its entirety, then react. In the beginning of COVID, there was talk about only going to be intra-conference competitions for indoors. Now there are conferences that are allowing inter-conference competitions. How is this going to affect the championships at the collegiate level?
I'll go first on this one since we made the EP go so hard earlier. No, the fact that it's not going to be purely interconference only, especially within the Power Five, means that the indoor championship is going to be a more legitimate championship. Because the fact of the matter is, certain conferences have access to tracks, certain conferences don't, and we all know that indoor tracks actually matter. And so if you don't get an opportunity to race where you need to race against the people you need to race against, especially indoors, it's going to be harder to make that top 16. So the more people that get more access and more opportunity to race, the more legitimate the NCAA championships ultimately are going to be. And I think, opening up the access to these places is a more fair and more beneficial overall for the sport. Does that mean everybody's going to get access? Probably not, but some is better than none. And if we're going to try to do this indoor thing the right way, I think the more people that get to race in legitimate areas, better for everybody.
I'll go next if that's okay with you. Happy New Year. I think for me, we need to kind of give a background here. You started with the SEC and the Big 12, just going to race against each other, conference only scheduling, work some things out. So now we have what we have. The Big 10, though, is still conference only. So that needs to be noted. For me, what I want to see here is some way that we get the flat tracks back into play, right? Because people can run fast on flat tracks. And if we would just run on flat tracks, we would see that. But because everybody's into the magic of the bank track and all the people that own the bank tracks are into the financial gain of, charging thousands of dollars to come to their track meets, everybody runs there. So I think the big thing for me is, yes, it gives better access to everybody. It will lead to more interesting meets. There will be, some meets with 8 to 10 teams that are going to be incredible. But I really think also that you're going to see some meets that some people are smart enough to get some good people on flat tracks and go at it because of the great indexing. You're going to see some great marks from those as well. So I think that what you could see from this, if people approach it the right way, is the fact that, hey, I don't have to go to the magic tracks. If I get the right people on the right tracks, I think you'll see some success there. There are going to be some schools that won't have the access that other schools have. But moving forward, because of the pandemic situation this country is in right now, and we don't know where this vaccine thing is going or how long it's going to take, there may be a long time before you see these 20 and 30 team invitationals anymore. And I think eventually, for me, for my money, I think it'll be better for the sport down the road because it'll force people to get on tracks and just run. And again, because of the great indexing, it'll be okay.
You know, I think I agree with that. I think part of the reason, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, if you can go to Arkansas and everybody goes to Arkansas and they run really fast, and everybody goes to Clemson and they run really fast, then it becomes, well, we got to go there in order to get these marks, and they're the only places you can go. When the truth of the matter is like, if you spread it out and everybody goes to tracks that are available to them, right? And, you know, okay, once a year I go to Clemson, or once a year I go to Arkansas, or once a year I go to Texas Tech, you will probably still end up with the right people in the meet, and you would save a whole lot of budgets. The funniest part, you know, because I'm old, not quite but I'm certainly old athletically, and I remember the days where dudes and females ran really, really fast on flat tracks. And the reason I say the funny part is, like, the two fastest flat tracks in this country, one doesn't exist because it's on your campus, and they made it into basketball seating. Because I can tell you this right now, with the indexing the way it is right now, if the McConnell Center track was still open, Lucious could charge $7,000 per gender, and look, there will be teams that would be there every week.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next fastest flat track in the country, in my opinion, is at Clemson, and I don't think anybody wants to go to Clemson and give them any money right now. Like, just being honest.
But Clemson's no longer flat. Clemson has
but I'm saying when it was,
or the old,
the old flat track, right? And so that's what I'm saying. Like, the two flat tracks that could definitively play in the bank track world don't exist anymore.
And let's not forget about the flat track in Winston-Salem, where everybody goes and runs the Lamar and the 800 every year, right?
Right. But I'm saying, like, those two tracks I mentioned, you can look. I'm gonna tell you this right now. If you were in lane 5 or 6 in the McConnell Center, you can run the O'Connell. You can run the man's name. You could run and qualify in the 2 or the 4 at any point in time you chose to.
Okay, so I'm gonna give a shout out to my man Bobby Williams, who ran 2079 in lane 3 in the O'Connell Center,
which is just absolutely dumb.
Yeah, but the difference was he didn't know any better, right? And so then as soon as they made the bank tracks, it became, oh, you can't go to Gainesville to run because you're gonna get hurt. The turns are too tight. Really?
So okay. Now wait a minute. I don't necessarily disagree, because as a person, I've been to those older tracks. Hell, I ran on those. I ran at the flat track in Florida when I was in college. I ran at the old school flat track in Clemson. And I think we all agree it is a fact that the current indexing, the conversion metrics, if by another term, are more favorable now than they used to be.
Sure.
Are we in agreement in that? Okay, cool.
Sure.
However, I don't believe for 1 second that Lucious would choose to run at the JDL fast track when he has an opportunity to run at Clemson or Arkansas. Given the choice, you're not going to make that choice.
Okay, so what's your point?
My point is that there's a reason in the 200 and the 400 that 16 of the top 20 marks in the country come from 5 or 6 tracks throughout the country every single year.
Because everybody goes there.
Right. But if those people didn't go there, they ultimately wouldn't be on the list running on these flat tracks.
I disagree.
I disagree.
Because I see, and I'm going to tell you from a guy that's coached to the flat track. If you go to the flat track, shut your mouth, put your blocks down, and run. Okay. I promise you, if the O'Connell Center was still available, and you bring the SEC, you bring the SEC meet here right now, okay? Over the last 4 or 5 years, the performances have been off the chain.
But that track doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, I'm just saying, but if it did, okay, so my thing to you is this, okay? If for budgetary reasons, I had to go to JDL and I couldn't go to Arkansas, so you don't put thoughts and words in my mouth, I ain't got no problem going to JDL, okay? None whatsoever. No. Okay. So if I'm a school that, okay, as Lamar said, if it said that you can only go to Arkansas once a year, okay? If that's the rule, okay, unless your conference is there, okay? If there was a rule out there that said, okay, you have to go, if there's a flat track within this radius, you have to go there, I'll go.
And let's be clear, we're talking about flat 200-meter tracks, not oversized tracks like you have at Iowa State or
flat 200 meters where the indexing is available. Right.
So, but you kind of admitted the point that I was getting at. If you had a budgetary reason that you had to go to a flat track, you ain't got no problem going. But you don't have a budgetary reason, you won't choose on purpose to go run at a flat track, would you?
No, why would I?
Well, so here's what I'll say.
Let me address this because he asked me this question. So what I'm saying to you is, for those people who you're speaking of who don't have access to Arkansas or Texas Tech or A&M, okay, find a flat track in your area that you can get to, go run it a couple of times, and you'll be shocked what happens the second time you go there, okay? Because if you have to go, and I don't have to go, but if you're in a situation where you have to go to the flat track, stop complaining and just go there and run, get your kids ready, and you'll get what you need. Trust me.
You and I agree with that sentiment. Like, everybody has their own plights. And if you have a plight that says because of money reasons, or because of COVID travel restriction reasons, or because of
COVID numbers reasons. So that's
right. Whatever the reason.
Right.
If you must run on these 200-meter flat tracks, I got the same attitude you have. Shut up, figure it out, go out there and give your best performances. I'm with you on that. What I'm saying is that the science says the flat tracks are faster, period. And that's why no one with a choice makes the choice to go play with the indexing.
You mean
that's
the
what
bank
I'm saying.
Okay, look, and nobody's ever going to argue with that the bank tracks are faster because of the way they're built and all that stuff. Okay, that's not the basis of the conversation. The conversation, but my point is, my point was, the whole point of my conversation was this: is that if people will go to the flat tracks and compete hard, they will be pleasantly surprised at how fast their athletes run, and they will be very pleasantly pleased with the fact that the indexing is retarded. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Okay, I'm not saying anybody is going to say, "Hey, instead of going to Arkansas, I'm going to Arkansas State." Nobody's doing that. Okay, but I'm saying to the people that don't have access to the bank tracks, if you have to go to a flat track, lace up your spikes and go after it, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at the result. That's all I'm saying.
I will say this, right? We do this all the time. Like, we over dramatize the influx of what a bank track does, right? It only grossly affects two events, the 2 and the 4.
That's true.
Right? But we all go crazy about it. But I'm just like, here's my thing. It is because the indexing, if you take an elite 4x4 group and go run at a 200-meter flat track, for sure you will run faster there than you will run at a moderately competitive. Like, if you go to Arkansas on an off week, right? So not everybody is there, right? If you go run at Arkansas on that track, if you take the same group of 4 people and go run a competitive field on a 200-meter flat track, I promise you'll run faster. After the indexing. Because the index is gigantic in the 4x4, right? We're only talking about the 4 and the 2.
Oh, sure.
We're not even talking about the 4x4.
Absolutely.
It's only the 4 and the 2. And at the end of the day, we're still not even talking about that great a number of people. Because if you take the same 16 of the 20 that qualify at Clemson, Arkansas, and Texas Tech, if you take those same 16 people and have them race on Texas Tech's old 260-meter flat track, their indexing would be, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking about the people. Like, very, very few people are we talking about are really going to be affected by this. right? There aren't very many people who are good enough to make the indoor national meet in the 4 and the 2 who are at a school that can't afford to go to Arkansas, Clemson, or Texas Tech. There are very few people that we're talking about.
You're absolutely right that the vast majority of this discussion is always about the 2, the 4, and by extension, the 4x4. You're absolutely right about that. But there's a very legitimate reason that people travel to Boston University, aka the launch pad, to go get their 1,500 meter race in, their 800 meter race in, their DMR qualified. Like, there's a reason people put in the money to do those things. There's a reason.
The track is short.
Oh, well, okay.
The
track is short.
See, you
Yes,
said
the track is short.
The events that happen. Let me speak to Boston. The events that usually happen at Boston, the big ones at Boston is the 5K, and they go run the 5K immediately after the cross country season when everybody's fresh,
and everybody goes.
Exactly. So there's great competition there.
But the people that have access to that particular track,
the distance coaches used to all go to Seattle to run, right? All the distance coaches used to all go to Seattle to run, right? 2 reasons. 1, everybody agreed to go, and 2, the track is elevated, so there's a small bounce to it. I got it. I understand you trick it up to do whatever you got to do. But at the end of the day, if you take all of those people and then they all started going to Iowa State when Martin got there, right? Now all of a sudden everybody qualifies at Iowa State. Is it because Iowa State's track is tricked? No. My point is that look, the street is going to be one of the 5 fastest tracks in the country if you put all the fastest people in the country on it.
Right, but you're making a blatant argument that it's about the talent running on the track and the tracks don't matter, and I'm saying that is untrue.
I don't think you can. Okay, nobody is ever going to dispute that bank tracks aren't faster,
right,
than the flat track. But
all bank tracks ain't built the same neither.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
That's a whole different caveat. It's a whole different avenue. All I'm saying, I think what Lamar is trying to say is we understand that the bank track scientifically is faster. It's built to be faster. But because let's just talk about the whole ball of wax here, okay? Because of the indexing, if you put the right people on the flat tracks at the right time with the indexing, you'll get those same people at the national meet.
Exactly.
Well, that is a point that I wish we would be able to find out in the near future, because I agree with you that the indexing is much more favorable today than it was before they changed it. I don't think the indexing is good enough for that to actually play out in real life. And the fact of the matter is, if people believed that for real, that the indexing was that good, once a year they would choose to go find out. But nobody that has a choice does.
This is where the distance coaches are smarter than the sprint coaches, because the distance coaches do it. They run to JDL and they get it done.
Because I'll say this, look, if somebody gave me the money to like put together the best track meet in the country that's not the NCAA's, I'd say, okay, I'm going to have the ACC, SEC, Big Ten Challenge at the Spire Center the same weekend as what we usually go to Arkansas. On my mama, the results will be better.
Well, now, sir, Spire is 300 plus meters. That's not part of this discussion.
But no, that's why I'm saying it, is that the point is the track matters for sure, but who we put on it is the much greater denominator.
See, what I want to say to that argument is this, okay? Just simply go back before the banks became really relevant and available and look at what people were running on flat tracks, because that's all they had. Go back and look at some of those results and then apply the indexing to those results. And they're all going to the NCAA championships, I promise you, because they're not that much faster now than they were then.
That's a fair point. That's a fair idea. Somebody out there with a computer and a lot of time on their hands and some nerdy tendencies, go pull up some of these meets You know, go pull
Look,
up.
Look, I just gave you an example where we had a guy at the SEC championships run 2079 out of lane 3.
Sure. No, I think the last indoor championship that I ever ran in was in your building. What year would that have been? 2004 or 2003? It was in your building. One of those 2 years. Mm-hmm. Somebody go pull up the 2003 and put the current indexing on there and dope out the meet and come back and holler at us. Tell us if those meets would have got you into the 2019 championships.
I mean, look, you're not this old, Clyde, but they used to have the NCAA meet in Oklahoma City on a 11 lap to the mile banked wood track.
Yeah, it was probably a bad idea.
It was a terrible idea, but you know what? People ran really fast.
No doubt.
In the dash.
Didn't Dennis Mitchell run like 20.6 in that thing?
Dennis Mitchell was struggling like a mug to stay in this lane and ran 20 point on a painted board wood track.
Absolutely.
Carl Lewis said it best. Fast people make fast tracks.
I'm telling you, man.
Well,
look, if you put asphalt indoors and painted it, but you put the fastest people in the country on it, it'd be one of the first, it will be the 5 fastest tracks in the country.
Listen, no one disagrees with the cute catchphrase, fast people make fast tracks, but it's also a fact. If you go look at some of the lesser known people, not the people that are the elites in the sport, go look at your Division II people, go look at the mid-level Division I people, you will find indoors that their PRs come from these faster tracks. It's just a fact. So again, of course the tracks matter.
Okay, hold on. Can we push the pause button for 1 second? Okay. Why is that even a conversation? Of course they come from those tracks.
Because the cute statement that you just threw out there is true, but also like largely irrelevant. Because again, if I'm at a Division II school and I only have access to very limited, very slow 200-meter flat tracks, and then 1 year I get to take my kids to Boston and everybody PRs. The coaching didn't change.
You have taken this conversation and we're in Tokyo somewhere. Yeah. This whole conversation was about qualifying for the NCAA championships. And my comment was simply that people that don't have access to indoor facilities which are banked will line up and go run hard on flat tracks. They will see great results and be pleasantly surprised. That's all I'm saying.
But
that's a
caveat. See what you did there? I love it. It was.
I didn't do anything. I simply stated what my thing has been about the whole time. You keep trying to take
you on that
somewhere else.
But
you're talking about Division II.
No, sir. What did you just say? You said they'll be happy with they'll say it again. Pleasantly surprised and have great results. Notice you didn't.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
That's the problem.
No. Look, the pleasantly surprised is they'll qualify. They'll qualify.
Okay, so I hope that someone out there really, really believes in that idea and goes and finds out.
See, but here's the thing. Choice. See, I want you to listen. Turn your hearing aid up. Turn it up.
Yeah. I'm here.
I want you to listen, not listen to dispute. Okay. I'm saying to you is there are people out there that will not have access to the bank facilities.
Yes.
Okay. So therefore they will be forced to run more on the flat surfaces.
Yes.
My challenge to them is to get their kids ready and have them go perform at a high level on the flat tracks. And they will be pleasantly surprised at how, with the indexing, they'll still get some of their kids into the national championship.
Okay, now
can I ask a question?
You hear me?
Go ahead, Clyde.
I agree with everything you just said, except get them kids to the national championships. So I will offer a similar challenge. I'm challenging anybody who access isn't an issue. You can go where you want, when you want, because you can. You got the time, you got the money, you got all of that. I am challenging one of these people to make the conscious decision. Hey, you know what? Lucious is smart. He's the GOAT. He knows what the hell he's talking about. You know what? I'm going to take him up on that. And this particular weekend, we're not going to go run at Arkansas or A&M or Clemson. You know what? We're going to take our people to the JDL and we're going to test out this indexing, because I don't think the indexing is good enough to make that true.
I'm going to ask you a very simple and pointed question, Mr. Clyde.
Sir.
If we took all of Lucious's young men and women at the University of Florida and we disallowed them from running on bank tracks this year, is there anybody who you currently think would be at the national championship that would not?
Now, sir, that's a very rude question.
It's not rude. I'm trying to prove my point.
Sir, wait a minute. Listen, it's a very rude question because our colleague is here and we're talking about kids who are currently in the game. You see what I'm saying? Like,
okay, we don't want to use
not
names.
Exactly cool.
So you're right. I understand what you're saying. So let's take the names off it. Do you think that there are any people, like, let's suppose that we decided we all think there's going to be, he's going to have 16 kids at the national championship, right?
I'll answer your question. I got you. I answer your question. I believe that if you take the top 16 kids in the country for the last, let's say, 5 years, right? Because the top 16 to make it to the meet. If you take the top 16 kids in the last 5 years in the country, Division I, men and women, and you eliminate them from running on the tracks that they were ran on, they only got to run those 200 meters or those 400 meters or those 4x4s on flat 200s only, I do not believe that half of them would qualify for the meet.
Wow.
If you take 17 through 24 and put them on the banks and take 16 through number 8 and put them only on the flats, I think you flip it totally.
See, you're a great.
And I will say I completely disagree.
Yeah,
that's
because
cool.
I
we ain't never gonna find out.
Because
no one's gonna choose to go run on them flat tracks.
See, that's not an issue. That's not even a conversation because clearly nobody's going to do that. But what I'm saying to you is you're underestimating the value of people's ability to coach, of athletes' ability to compete. Because I can promise you that if you take the SEC and you say, okay, guys, all y'all can do is flat tracks this year. Can't do any banks, right? I promise you, we're all going to be at the show. The ones of us supposed to be there, and there's a bunch of us in the top 16. I can't speak for anybody else.
And that was my point.
I will take that challenge any day, every day, because see, this is what we do. We coach to the circumstances we are given. I played the hand, right? So when you say what wouldn't happen, no, I disagree because all we do is play by the rules we're given. And if those rules are you have to qualify on a flat track, then we are going to find a way to qualify on the track. That's what good coaches and good athletes do.
But sir, listen, I don't disagree with any of that. Okay, good coaches ride. Listen, you just said
that we wouldn't get there.
No, I didn't say everybody wouldn't. I said about half of them.
Oh,
good coaches rise to the occasion, and that's dope. Great athletes rise to the occasion, and that's dope. Flamingo is going to be Flamingo wherever you put Flamingo. But everybody ain't Flamingo. And there's a whole bunch of people. If you look at the top 16.
Well, Flamingo's not affected because he doesn't run the 2 or the 4. So I don't know why we're talking about Flamingo.
Sir, I was just using it.
That's a bad analogy.
Great athlete.
Okay, we'll find somebody else because
he's just a great athlete.
He's a bad example. No, he doesn't run the 2 and the 4, so he's a bad example.
Okay. All right. Karan Clement when he was in college is Karan Clement when he's in college.
Yeah.
Karan Clement.
By the way, Karan ran 46 flat on the flat track. So that's another bad example.
And 46
on the O'Connell Center.
Wait, right. It was 46 flat with the current indexing gets what?
Probably the fastest time in the country.
It's like 45:24.
He's the fastest guy. He's the fastest guy.
It doesn't get him the indoor world record, does it?
It was actually that was the same year he broke the indoor world record.
Right.
But the point is
see, hold on a second. I'm gonna
I'm
push the
talking
pause
about the
button.
time of the performance.
We need to stop this because you keep taking the conversation somewhere else.
No,
We're
sir.
not,
Wait, that
no,
was
stop.
a
Hold on a
perfect
second.
place
We're
to
not
take it.
talking about how do we get to talk about the indoor world record?
Because,
It's
sir,
not about the indoor world
stop.
record.
Wait a
This is
minute.
about
I'm gonna answer your
qualifying for
question.
the NCAA championship.
I'm gonna answer your question.
Stick to the rules of the game.
Sir, I'm sticking to the rules of the question. That was a perfect way to go with the conversation because it makes the point. Karan Clement used to be the indoor world record holder. Fastest ever until Norman came along. The time that he ran was the world record. The new indexing, would not have given him said world record. Now, that doesn't matter for world record purposes, but when you qualify for the meet based on marks and not based on head-to-head competition, the marks matter. So my point is, even someone who's great enough to be the indoor world record holder, indexing couldn't produce the mark that was his peak. And my point to Lamar's question was, if we're talking about the list, which is the top 16, everybody in there ain't world record great worthy. So yeah, he could probably still be the number one dude in the country, but dude who's number 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 to 16 aren't going to get the same number or a better number based on the indexing. Therefore, they won't be in the meet. That's the point. That's the exact
but okay, your point is totally invalid because because you're talking about Karan at his peak. When he ran the time, he wasn't at his peak. You're talking about Karan in the world record, and the world
all right, so
record.
Sir, let me. I'm gonna make it simpler for you.
No, I don't need you. No, I don't want you to simplify anything. I'll let you talk. Please let me talk. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but you're talking about things that have nothing to do with this conversation. Okay, I and Lamar are under the belief that if you take people and they're required to go qualify on flat tracks, they will find a way to get it done.
Cool.
Yes, I'm not finished. Has nothing to do with a world record. Has nothing to do with peak performances and all that stuff. Okay. So will there be some people that might not get into the meet? Of course. There might be some that might not get in. But there are going to be some that get in also that you wouldn't expect them to get in. Yeah. Because believe it or not, I am of the belief that some of these people that go to Arkansas or Texas Tech and get shoved in these heats at 9 o'clock in the morning when they're running by themselves and they run something that just misses them getting the meet. Okay. If they go to a meet on a flat track with competition and run against people head to head, they'll get in.
Okay. Now, Lamar, I'd like to pose this question to you because this ultimately is not about a person that you dealt with directly. But I will need Lucious's help because I don't remember the date. Sir, what was the date that Karan broke that world record?
The NCAA is indoors. It's like March 14th,
okay,
something like that.
March 15th. What's 23rd?
What was the official record?
44.57.
44.5. 44.5. Cool. Lamar, are you telling me that you believe on that date at an NCAA championship, we're going to pick up the NCAA championship and we're going to transport it to the JDL fast track. On that date, that man would have produced a time that the conversion would have been faster than 44.5? Is that what you're telling me?
That's irrelevant.
Wait, so I'm
talking about qualifying.
I'm going to answer the question. We're not talking about qualifying.
But that's what this conversation is about. It's qualifying.
44.
Not about that.
Right?
It's not about.
So basically, what you're asking me is if the NCAA meet had been at the O'Connell Center, could he have run 45.25? That's what you're asking me.
No, sir. Stop with that. I'm not talking about a track that no longer exists. Not the freaking O'Connell Center. The tracks that exist today.
What I'm saying, look,
Purdue,
if we're gonna
JDL,
if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this with the tracks that existed, right? Because he ran 46 flat at the O'Connell Center. So that's what I'm saying. It makes sense to use that track.
All right,
right?
Cool.
To answer your question is this. If you're asking me, he ran 46 flat at he ran 46 flat at the SEC meet.
2 weeks
so if you're
before
asking,
time out.
No, it was a week before. It was a week before.
No. Time out. He ran 46 flat at the end of January. Wasn't even February.
Okay.
He ran in January. He just didn't
what
run it
you're
again into
asking
the
me,
conference.
what you're asking me, Chuck, is this: if he ran 44.5 in the middle of March at Arkansas, if
Yep.
that meet, same person, if that meet was at the O'Connell Center, could he have run 45.25? I will tell you absolutely and positively.
Cool. And that is an opinion that you are entitled to, but do you agree that that is the conversation that we are having?
Yes.
Because
yes, I agree.
Well, Lucious says that it's not the conversation that should be having.
Because it's not.
You qualify for the meet based on your best performance.
Okay, all right. So his best performance happened at the meet. You're talking about he broke the world record at.
I know that.
Hold on a second. Can you quit talking about the world record? It has nothing to do with this conversation. Nothing whatsoever.
Lamar, do you understand the point I'm making?
Hold on a second. No, he does not. And if he tells you he does,
Yes,
he's
he does.
lying. Because
Yes,
you're
he does.
saying Karan couldn't have broke the world record. You're saying Karan couldn't have broke the world record at the JDO. Okay? That's what you're saying. But that's irrelevant to
what I'm saying.
Go Chew. Miss Big League, would you be so kind as to read the question that we're discussing? It's nothing to do with world records. It's about qualifying for the meet.
Oh, Lord.
Yes, Lord, call him.
Look,
Please.
at the end of the day, look, here's what it is. And then we're gonna move. Then we're gonna move on.
See,
we're gonna move
because
on.
because this is just classic Clyde and his pettiness. You try
I'm not
to
even
be
being
right.
petty. I'm being
You
extremely
try to be
serious.
right, and
You're
there's no way
attempting
you can be
to
right
be
about
petty.
this. You're
attempting
effort to
to
be
petty,
right.
not letting
You're
Lamar
talking
answer
about
the question.
Karan breaking the world record at the JDL. This conversation is about qualifying.
All I'm gonna say is this, Clyde. I will go to my grave believing that if you disallowed bank tracks, or they were only allowed to be used one time a year or whatever, I don't believe that, like you believe that 8 of the 16 people would be different. I would tell you, I think no more than 1 or 2 at best.
Cool. And that's a worthy debate to have. That's the question.
And I think the biggest
Not about when the world record was going to be broken, right?
Yeah. Anyway, for me,
that's what he kept talking about.
For me, I think it's not a difficult thing for me to say, because I have run on elite level flat tracks in lane 5 and lane 6, and I have run on bank tracks. And I would tell you that with today's indexing, now the issue is this: the indexing used to be terrible, so it made no sense to run on them. But in today's indexing, if you put the right people on a flat track,
the right people at the right time of year,
yes,
it's gonna be. I'm telling you.
So, Big League, what we got next?
Yeah. So I'm going to say I did allow that conversation to go because there are all things that could, should, and have to be heard in different aspects. There was chunks, not necessarily congruent. There was chunks.
Absolutely, there were
that
chunks.
needed to be
all
said.
Chunks that didn't belong.
So, and that people don't understand.
That's not what she said, sir. Not even a little bit.
Wait, put a pin in that. That was the first legitimately petty thing that Lucious has done and said.
It ain't the first. It's close to the first. It's not remotely
So you brought the pettiness out of me on that one. I couldn't.
I love it.
Lord have
So
mercy.
I have to say, because Gabe is sitting in his chair right now, bouncing up and down. Gabe, we know that your track has been certified.
It's not short. I just like to say that.
I know.
Right.
See, look, Gabe, we know.
Hey,
we know.
We expect that pettiness from him, though, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
the track is certified. Dude, listen, it was a joke. Don't nobody go run around talking about Lamar said that Boston's track is short. Like,
I mean, you
get your panties out of.
I did by the end of the week
because I was joking. I don't. Yeah,
I'm going to defend it.
People used to say the same thing about Arkansas track too, because you people were
absolutely.
I got you, Gabe. I got you. Anyhow, so in true essence of wrapping up the year, we want to reflect. I want you all to reflect on your best 2020 LLC moment. What moment brings you here and goes, ah? What if I was had the ability to hit
all right, so
a play button for a month?
I got 2. Okay, so my absolute best LLC moment Brooks Johnson. If I was a pretty nigga like you,
oh, absolutely.
That is the best LLC moment of the year for me, followed by Big League Chew's reaction when she found out she was on the hot seat. Those are my two best. Oh my
gosh.
Those
Someone
are my two
took a picture.
But
Someone took a picture.
Yeah, but the best one, Brooks Johnson. Just when we thought he wasn't going to leave us a pearl, he dropped that one. Right?
Well, what about the chair?
Yeah. That wasn't a moment. That was a whole segment on that
one. Oh man. I had my fingers crossed the whole time. Don't say the N-word. Don't say. Oh no.
Oh, you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming.
Now, see, because I was trying. This is supposed to be, you know, a nice segment that we're doing right now. I was hoping to ignore by far the funniest segment, which was absolutely that moment. That was by far the most hilarious thing that happened, without a doubt. But of course, I get accused of being petty. Lucious just again brought the petty moment.
That was petty? Or was that cool? Funny?
It was petty. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. I thoroughly enjoyed being the target in that moment. Shout out to Brooks. I love you. We all love you. Definitely the funniest thing that happened. For me, and this was hard. This was actually hard because we've had, in my opinion, a lot of great moments on this show. So I'm gonna cheat, and I'm just gonna put it into one category, because honestly, given what I know about these people, when we first decided to do this and the whole heartbeat props thing ultimately came into fruition on the show, when I knew that was going to happen, in my brain, I said, okay, that's a great idea. And I'm guaranteed to be the only fool that's going to end up crying on the show. And so for me to have seen everybody cry on the show at least once during heartbeat props are the best moments of the show for me, because I don't think that a lot of people truly know and truly have access to all of us. And you see a lot of our better parts of our personality come out in the heartbeat props. So to me, heartbeat props has been the best part of the show. And when these dudes, especially the dudes, get to tearing up, I love it.
That was incredibly well said, Mr. Clyde. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to take two, and I'm going to give one from the EP perspective and one from the Lamar perspective. And I'll say the best LLC moment for me, to be completely honest, for me, the executive producer didn't happen on camera. For 20 years, I have been saying to Lucious, we need to do a talk radio show. We need to do a talk radio show. And I said it 98% tongue in cheek. And then when COVID happened and I felt like the world was hurting and I was angry and there were things that needed to be talked about, I called him on the phone and said, hey man, we need to do this. And I was fully expecting to hear a laundry list of very valid reasons as to like why we couldn't or how we couldn't do it. And all I got back was, I'm in. And so I hate to, be all melodramatic, but the day that I knew we were going to try to do this show was the best moment. The best, from an executive producer's perspective, it was the best moment for me, because that flamed into asking Clyde and then realizing we got a chance to make something awesome, but we can't do it at all if Chew doesn't say yes. Like, I want everybody to hear me say that. This doesn't happen if Chew says no. Like, because there's no chance that the three of us, we know each other well enough to know We can't control the argument, right? The show's off the rails if we don't have Chew on this show. So it never would have happened if she, like, you know, I remember like crossing my fingers going, God, I hope she says yeah, because if she says no, I don't know what we're going to do. So that's from my EP perspective. From the Lamar perspective, man, that's like asking me to pick between my kids. I mean, the obvious one obviously is, you know, it was what has already been stated by Lucious, but I think for me, the first, when we had Jackie on the show, I'll just say it like that, right? Like the little kid in me, I know Jackie. I think I know Jackie better than everybody on the screen. But still, the fact that she said yes, and then like me still being the pessimist inside of me, right? Like it wasn't until her face popped up on the screen, I was like, we're doing this. We got Jackie, right? It's like almost like we had arrived. And I know that's crazy. That's no disrespect to any of the gold medalists we had before or the gold medalists we had after her, right? There's no diss to any of them. Just the little kid inside of this guy, like, look, man, there's Jackie and there's Carl, and that's kind of it, right? There's everybody else, right? But there's Jackie and there's Carl. And we got Jackie. And yes, I'm going to say it right now, in 2021, we will have Carl. Only reason we haven't had him yet is it just didn't ask him. But yeah, I think when my giddy moment for the best LLC moment, you know, from my Lamar perspective, was definitely when Jackie's face popped up on the screen and I knew we were doing the show. I was like, oh, this is going to be epic.
Well, let me add to that, and give props to our EP who we tease horrifically all the time, and rightfully so.
It's all good. I love you all.
We obviously our first guest was Otto, and you know, a lot of people, you know, when you open with Otto, it's like, well, that's a hell of a standard. Like, how you gonna keep that going? And there were discussions like, hey, I mean, we can have guests, but if we're gonna have guests, like now that, like, what kind of guests are we gonna have, and what direction are we gonna go in? And it's been, you know, impressive at the level that we've been able to hold, you know, with the people that we have brought in, and you know, that's we all play a part in that, but that, you know, that's mostly props to Lamar. So well done, sir. You screwed yourself moving forward, but you know,
I'm a fan of high standards. I'm a fan of high standards. I think it. Look, I think two things, just to give the folks out there a little, you know, view behind my eyes. I think two things as it pertains to guests on this show. One, this show is always more about the show than it is about the guests. Not because the guests aren't awesome, but this show is important to our sport, right? And you know, it's just like no member of the team can be bigger and better than the team. No matter who we ever have on as a guest, right? It's still about the show. Like that's just what it is. And then the second thing, and I think that this is the big thing, is that, like, look, membership has to have its privileges, and we, trust me, I've been asked by a lot of people, when am I going to get to be on the show? And I tell them honestly, like, I'm not sure, right? I'm sure there's a time and a place for everyone at some point in time to be a guest in the show. Some people are going to be, you know, eligible to be guests in the 40 to 45 show range, and some people are going to be eligible to be guests in the 450 to 455 range, right? Like, that's just what it is. But understand this, it's not a disrespect to anybody. I think the biggest thing that we've done is, like, tried to have guests that were pertinent, timely, meaningful, right? We really haven't tried to add a guest because they were famous, right? We've tried to add every guest that we've added for their perspective. Just the, you know, that's the EP's thoughts anyway.
What you got, Chew? There ain't no way you getting out of this one.
Yeah, no chance.
I was really going to try to get through it too. The big broad stroke for what the best moment for me for LLC is all the feedback. I know that's not poignant to one thing, but the feedback always comes back to how much we are giving back to the sport. And that's what it is. You know, the comment of, I've learned more in 10 months than I have in my 10 years of coaching. Not because of the X's and O's, but because of the methods, the theories, and the reasons of the why things happen. They love it. And I love hearing it. You know, I think, oh, I take that back. I have a moment. When Gerald says our names, that's my moment.
Oh,
When
yeah.
when I hear Gerald say our names, who is that? Who's on the screen? And the 4-year-old says all of our names, not because his dad tells him, but because he watches the show. How cool is that?
That is cool.
You know, and then I'll go back and kind of like, I don't know if I said this on while recording before, but my kids have actually, my own 2 mediums have watched the show, and they find it entertaining, and they barely know how to run. So, you know, at the very least, I know we're entertaining. We can get a 12 and a 14-year-old entertained. So, but no, above and beyond all else, the broad stroke of how we are affecting the sport. And so I love that we've educated people. I love that we've spurred some thoughts. I have to think that this North American track circuit was maybe furthered by our conversation. Maybe not thought of but furthered the confidence of that happening. So yeah, that's my 2020 LLC moment. I'll have to make note of all of those, so when we go to 2021, we can't repeat them.
I love the fact, speaking of feedback, and I've gotten this multiple times in multiple ways, but I love the fact that we've become a thing, right? You know, it used to be you watched the Cosbys on Thursday and you watched New York Undercover. I think it was also on Thursdays. Like, there were shows that you watched, right? Well, for our relatively rabid fan base, like, we've kind of taken over Friday from 5:30 to about 9, because it somewhere in there is when people watch it. Also known as somewhere in there is when it gets released. But hey, I kid because I care.
Petty.
That was definitely petty. But for real, Friday evenings have become, and for some people, Saturday mornings, which I also think is kind of cool, but we've become a thing, right? Like, all right, don't bother me. I got like an hour and a half. I'm about to watch my show. Like, the fact that we are some people's show, I think is pretty dope.
Yep.
We will continue to, you know, I want to address one thing really quick. For some reason, there's this underlying thought out there, like, well, what are they going to do when season starts? I'm going to tell you all. Are you listening? Turn your volumes up. We're going to record the shows on our recording days. I'm not going to tell you when they are. And we are going to deliver the show on Friday in or around 5:30 every week.
Once again, petty.
5 o'clock.
We will deliver the show to you at 5 o'clock EST every week. So put that thought to bed that, like, oh, well, how are they going to do the show once they all start traveling across the country and doing track meets? Look, we play chess, not checkers, folks. We are built for this.
It'll get done. It
will get done.
I mean,
may I throw, since I've avoided being petty the whole time?
Oh boy.
Can I throw in one?
Ladies and gentlemen, Petty Paul.
A soft petty. Last week I caught a lot of flack, but apparently our audience agrees with me. We've had one contest on this show. The crown is mine.
Oh wait,
wardrobe. Not only did I win, but I told you I'm taking first and second. And I think when you do the math and you add up the votes of all three and they don't equate to my total, I think that's a sweep of the podium.
Okay, so clearly wherever you went to school, your math skills, because like the second place person had 14, right?
14.
Okay, hold on a second. So and you had 24. So if you take
No,
half
sir.
No.
No. I had 52% of the vote. The
No,
rest of you combined,
we're talking about actual numbers here.
less than 52% of the vote.
Actual numbers here. If you
I'm
have
talking about the percentage of the vote, just like politics.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay,
got less
Oh, you can't
here's the thing. Congratulations.
a crown that's supposed to be on your head.
Oh, well, then you screwed that up. You moved that over here.
Yeah. Congratulations. But as I clearly stated in our group text earlier, clearly people don't understand what an ugly sweater contest, because there was nothing ugly about anything that you had on. But
no, they thought I looked the best. That's why I won.
No. But again, they're just as confused as you are, clearly, because.
Well, you know, as Brooke said, if we was as pretty as no.
So congratulations. I'll be petty. I'll be less petty than you are. Congratulations on your whack win. So there you go.
Congratulations to your Krampus sweater, because the sweater was fire. I will admit to that.
Oh, look. Nobody's debating that your sweaters were nice. Those were very well crafted. But ugly? No. So clearly, whoever you and your friends are, y'all don't add very well, and you don't know what ugly is.
So I actually did have someone say, "Did you win first and second because you had 2 sweaters?" So that was pretty funny.
I sure did.
That is a burner account question asked by Clyde. Clearly,
that is absolutely not.
And he clearly did not win both. But anyway, hey, you won. You won overall. That's all we know. You won overall. So congratulations. So petty moment over. Let's move on. We've got things to do.
Petty Paul is the winner of the ugly sweater contest this year. I will be back in 2021.
So all I'm saying is this: is that if we're gonna not be ugly sweaters, I'm not wearing one, because that was a waste of my time. If people don't know what the ugly sweater is, I'm not participating in a contest where people don't know the daggone rules.
Oh boy!
I'll have rules ready for next year. I'll have rules ready.
No. Okay, you can't vote for a sweater that wasn't ugly in an ugly sweater contest. And Clyde and Lamar didn't have a sweater on. He had a freaking costume on.
What are you talking about? I had a sweater.
He had an elf costume. It wasn't even a sweater.
I had on an elf sweater.
It's a costume. It's not a sweater. It's a costume. But anyway, congratulations, Sir Clyde. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
You and the minions that you paid off to vote for you.
Right? Right? Vote again. Vote again. Vote again.
Chris, Lamar, he sounds very right now.
I'm good. I'm done. I'm done being petty. I'm good. I'm good.
No, not petty. That ain't the word.
Oh, look.
Anyway,
Big
League, what we got?
All right. For real this week. No curveballs. Lamar, you are on the hot seat.
Okay.
Right?
Sounds
Wait,
good.
that's right. Okay, I'm like, that's right, right?
No timeouts this week. You're good. You're safe.
Yeah, legitimately. I just took the
like she's
question.
waiting to see. Hey. No, you're good. You're good.
All right. The switch has been flipped.
All right.
All right. Favorite New Year's celebration that you've been a part of?
The one and only time I actually ventured to Times Square for the ball drop.
Okay. Which ball drop do you
I would not
prefer to watch?
advise that to anybody, by the way.
Yeah, I heard that's horrible.
It's freezing cold and it's horrible.
Which ball drop do you prefer to watch? I was gonna start giving names and I forgot that not all of them are alive anymore, so I didn't want to give names. So Ryan
you mean like?
they have
I'm
the
sorry.
different channels.
I don't care what it's called. It's Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve. That's it.
Okay. I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to say his name.
Yeah.
In a track meet, did you prefer a speed suit or a 2-piece uniform? Because I've seen pictures of both. So
I probably prefer the two-piece.
got it.
It was the field event things. Like to just run in, probably a speed suit. But because I never just ran, two-piece.
See, there you go with the things that you're like kind of good at. So whatever.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler or Will Ferrell?
Oh, Will Ferrell. And only because the consistency of delivery. Like to Clyde's argument earlier, like peak Adam Sandler and peak Will Ferrell, that's a legitimate conversation. But just one or the other, yeah, it's not close. Will Ferrell.
What was your must-have in your training bag?
Besides the 17 pairs of spikes?
I was going to say besides the spikes and the shoes and the uniform.
Wow, I probably power bars.
Got it. Wow, you're old. Power bars.
I was not really a food eater. So like, 4 power bars would be a meal.
Oh God. I just
the bad part is like power bars like age like Twinkies. So like I definitely have not put power bars in my bag and be like, oh, there's 3 in here. They were probably from the last decathlon, which was at least a month before. Definitely ate them.
Last question. Woody or Buzz Lightyear?
To infinity and beyond.
Got it. Buzz Lightyear. You're done.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You're nice to me. Like I don't,
I've gotten you a couple times. I have to be nice once in a while.
I was gonna say that seat didn't feel hot. I was okay.
I got to keep my job in 2021, so I gotta.
Obviously, you have job security. I have already stated on this show we can't do the show without you.
Yeah. Just kidding. Well, gents, like every other time, we cover over an hour and we don't even know that it's gone over an hour. So, with some great conversation, a little bit of argument and a little bit of banter in between those things, we hope that we've been able to educate one, if not more, of you out there with these things. But please have a fun, safe New Year. Blessings, wealth, health, specifically health to all in those times coming. So thank you so much and have a great night.
When the lights come on, the road just get to running. When the lights come on, opponents smash the plumbing. Heard you like it warm, hot, knife the butter. Truth pin them hard, knock them off that rebuttal. Tsunami, tidal wave to your puddle. Tough love, punch you in the arms, little brothers. Athletics, LLC, there's no others. Track and field's place to appeal to go further. Hey, Wile E. Coyote, it's road runners. Feels like you know us, you've been with us the whole summer. If not for this quarantine, these 4 corners wouldn't be here, but we here, so start learning. You gotta earn your stripes, gotta get your scars. Show you how to fight, but show us who you are. You lack experience, but still you wanna talk. And who is actually talking to you? Circle's kinda small. Heads prevail when the backbone's strong. Gotta keep it coming, no, it won't last long. Pass or fail, then sell the sad song. And if you don't check yourself, then that's wrong. Just trying to give you the real that you asked for. So why you keep cutting us off to ask more? We put it in slow-mo, but you fast forward. Athletics, LLC, the task force.